Hello and welcome to That Nerd Thing, where we uncover the magical impact that fandoms have on our lives. I'm Morgan, and today we have a very special guest from the music industry. He is a multi-Grammy award-winning and Academy Award-nominated record producer and songwriter, and he currently works as the Senior Vice President of A&R at Big Machine Label Group. So welcome, Julian Raymond. Thank you so much for being here, Julian. I really, really appreciate it.
Excellent. I'm proud to be here, and thanks for having me on.
I'm so excited to hear about your life and your journey because when Kaylin was first telling me about you, I was like, wow, he's done some really, really neat things.
Well, I hope I live up to expectations.
So I'd like to start out the show getting an idea of, I like to call it your nerdy identity, but really it's just the things that you've been fans of for your entire life. So are you ready for the questions?
I'm ready.
What is the first thing that you remember being nerdy about or really being a fan of?
Probably that I didn't like being in bands, and I wanted to be in the studio making records. So I like the technical side much more than I like being on stage and performing in front of audiences. And that I just found to be a greater source of happiness for me. I don't know if that's nerdy,
Yeah.
but I guess technically, I mean, I like making records. I like being behind the scenes. I like that whole thing. I don't have any desire to be up front. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, I think, I like to say being nerdy is really just having a passion for something. So
Sure.
what is your favorite part about being behind the scenes?
If we're talking specifically about making records, my favorite part of it is to be finished with a record. And largely for that reason, it's like getting in there and fighting this battle to make sure the songs are great, the musicians that are playing on the songs are great, the recording process, the way everything sounds is great, and living up to the expectations of our superiors like my boss, Scott Bruschetta, making sure he's on board and likes what we're doing. The mixing, it's a major ordeal and a major process to get this job done. And to quote somebody that I admire, a guy named Jimmy Iovine, he used to say, get in there and fight the monster.
Ooh.
And that's how he described making records, is fighting a monster. And maybe it sounds negative, but it's a struggle. I mean, some are easier than others, but bottom line is you got to get in there and get it right. It's a process, so it's difficult, but I enjoy it.
It sounds like there's a lot to manage. And, as somebody who listens to music, we probably don't necessarily realize everything that goes into actually making a record and the amount of time and effort and the amount of people that are behind the scenes working on it.
Right. It's a giant process, but the real thing is when I'm done with that process, I mean, there's records I made that I've never heard since I've recorded them. Unless I hear something on the radio occasionally or something like that, or in my case, sometimes in a supermarket, going down, oh, I did that. So I rarely go back and listen to those records ever again.
Yeah, that's how I feel about this podcast. I don't like re-listening to myself after.
I understand. Totally.
What is something that you've currently worked on that you've been really proud of?
Well, currently, I've been my whole life in Los Angeles, and then I came to Nashville, and I started in country music, and that was 9 years ago. Right now, I'm on the eve of a #1 record by a guy named Chris Jansen with a song called All I Need Is You, and that's supposedly, if the target is correct, it's supposed to be #1 single next week.
Wow.
So that I'm very proud of. I'm happy for Chris. Chris has had a crazy career, and he's with Big Machine now, and we're happy to have him, and he's doing everything right, and that's current. And also recently, within the last 6 months, a band that I produced called The Struts. They're an English band, a rock band, because we have a rock label as well at Big Machine. The Struts are doing very well. They're touring all over the United States, all over the world. Their single is doing very well. It's an alternative radio single called Pretty Vicious, and it's the #1 most requested song on Alt Nation.
So you've really worked with so many different sorts of artists.
Yeah, I've come a long way in the sense of when I started, I started at a company called Hollywood Records, which is a Disney label. And the first thing that I was producing was for a TV show called The Mickey Mouse Club.
Wow.
So I produced music for their band that was on the show called The Party. And it was all, very preteen and teen-oriented music. And so I started there, and then I graduated onto other artists and other things at the label, Hollywood, and the first #1 record I had there was the band called Fastball, a song called The Way, and that was considered alternative music back in the day. So I don't know what it's considered now, but then everything gets labeled. So I did a lot of stuff, an enormous amount of films at Disney, stuff that I've never seen before, but I did music for, like I don't even remember them all, but there's too many, all these Whoopi Goldberg films and stuff like that, that I recorded the music for them or for certain movies, and I never even heard it or saw it in the films, but I did it.
What's the difference between working on film versus like radio and that sort of music?
Well, right now I'm doing an awful lot of documentaries.
Oh.
So I'm scoring the music that you hear underneath the dialogue,
Hmm.
which is very simple for me to do because basically the goal with documentaries is to stay out of the way of the dialogue. Because as a documentary, you're telling a story, obviously. And with films, it's more like there's a lot of action, there's a lot of stuff going on, you're accenting what's going on in the picture at the moment. That's how I got the Academy Award nomination, was for a Glenn Campbell film called I'll Be Me, which is a documentary on his descent into Alzheimer's. I wrote a song called I'm Not Gonna Miss You, which has to do with that whole process for him. And we got nominated, but we lost to John Legend and Common.
Darn.
Oh well, that's showbiz. You win a few, you lose a lot.
What is the most random and underrated thing about being a producer?
Well, I think the main thing, I don't know if this exactly answers your question, but it's not, to me, it's not something you get a lot of glory for.
Mm.
Because, I mean, the real thing is you want the artist to be, the face of their product and to get out there and get the accolades they deserve. And I'm just behind the scenes. On certain projects, I'll help with the music. I'll help with even sometimes the songwriting, whatever it takes to get it to the next level. On some bands, they're great. They know what they're doing. You're just making sure it's all recorded properly. So everything is completely different. I mean, I've had platinum records with an album that took 17 days to make. I've had a gold record with someone that took 3 days to make.
Wow.
I've had a massive failure that took a year long to make, that never, it just depends on the artists and what's going on in their lives and their career and what you're up against. Everything is just a struggle to try to get it right, but a lot of it's a lot of fun along the way too. Like this one band that I did is a pretty, no pun intended, insane type of band that are called the Insane Clown Posse.
Mhm.
And they're these clowns that have clown makeup on. That was definitely a specific type of music that was very violent and very descriptive in how they kill people and what they do to people. But it was done in humor. So, I mean, they weren't serious about it. But many people take them very seriously, as their fan base has been on the top 10 FBI's most watch out for list. They're called juggalos, and they're the type of people that listen to ICP, Insane Clown Posse, and they've been labeled as a serious threat to society, which they're not.
Wow.
I mean, I don't know why they do that, but I guess when you rap about things of that nature, I guess you get labeled that type of thing that could be considered dangerous. But they were harmless, they were funny, they're really nice people. I enjoyed working with them, but just getting the lyrics secured from label lawyers to make sure we were okay to say the things that they were saying, and it was a major ordeal because there's a lot of controversy around that band all the time. So that was another one that I would say was definitely a struggle to make, but at least with them, they were kind, they were funny, and they were helpful during the process. So just what they were doing wasn't mainstream to what people really wanted to support.
Mhm.
It was a bit fringe, I guess you'd call it.
Fans can be very powerful, and people can really
Yes.
judge fandoms.
100%. And they have a huge fan base, and they're doing very well, and they continue to do well. But it's just another one of these things that I've been a staff producer, which is what I've mainly been, because I've been at Hollywood Records, which was Disney, as I said. Then from there, I went to Capitol Records, and then from there, I went to Warner Brothers Records, and from there, I'm here at Big Machine in Nashville.
Mhm.
When you're a staff guy, you get asked to do a lot of different things. It doesn't matter if it's a punk rock band, if it's a hip hop band, if it's country, if it's rock, it's all this different kind of stuff. And you have to be able to go in there and either fix it, because sometimes we get finished records and then the record company president will go, I don't like the guitars on this record. Get one of your guys to go in and fix it.
Oh, wow.
A lot of it has to do with fixing records and fixing stuff. And it's just it's a job, but you have to be able to get whomever wants what they need and what they want for the label.
Mhm.
So you answer always to your boss, which in my case has always been the record company president or the person in charge. So whatever they want is what I do, but lately it hasn't been too much fixing anymore. So that's good. So largely those days are gone, but it's always a process. And it's funny because a lot of the things that I did for films were some of the most difficult, because film music, then you have to deal with a director. And sometimes they don't explain exactly what they want. They'll say, please go in and make this band sound like Nine Inch Nails. And then you do that and you come back and you play it for them. They go, oh, this is way too heavy. It's too industrial. I was talking more like Bon Jovi. Okay. I mean, they don't really have the dialogue,
Yeah.
or the way to communicate exactly what they're talking about. Some are amazing, right down to the point where it's really difficult to work with them because they're so meticulous about
Hmm.
everything you do. They want it a certain way. But it's always a crapshoot what you're going to get in those situations. And with these documentaries I've been doing over the last 10 years, it's been very fun for me because the people that I work with, it's called PCH Films. They do great work and they know what I do and they're very supportive, and it hasn't been a struggle at all. So it's been pretty fun overall. Sorry, I'm moving away from maybe the original question.
Oh, no, no, no.
I'm
We
rambling
could go
on.
on tangents and hear stories. That's totally
Yeah,
okay. I'm
cool.
curious. So you've worked with so many different people. Have you ever been starstruck?
No, I have a funny story that I've never really told anybody, but I'll tell
Yes,
you.
please.
Once I was producing a band called the Wallflowers, which was Bob Dylan's son, Jacob Dylan.
Hmm.
And he had a very successful record in the 90s. And I was working with him and his band, and we were in a studio in Los Angeles, and the phone rang. And Jacob knows I'm a huge Beatles fan because I love the Beatles. And anyway, the phone rings, and it says Paul McCartney would like to come in and say hello.
No. Wow.
And I thought it was a joke because Jacob's dad is Bob. They probably bumped into each other at one time. We didn't really know what was going on. And so, of course, send him in, The door opens up and it's Paul McCartney.
Wow.
So, and he had mentioned to Jacob, he goes, you probably don't really remember me, but I was at your house a lot when you were a boy. And Jacob said, well, there was a lot of people at my house when I was a boy, and I know I don't remember you. So, in the nicest way. Anyway, Paul was hanging around for a while, and Jacob kept looking at me the whole time, and I couldn't figure out why he was looking at me. And anyway, when Paul left later, I go, why were you looking at me the whole time so weird? Why? He goes, I was just waiting for you to break down crying or start freaking out. I'm not going to do that. But, it's just funny. It was just one of those funny moments where somebody like that walks in that you don't expect.
Yeah. You recognize that they're people.
Yeah. I've never been, starstruck. I've been around a lot of people in my life, a lot of it because when you work at a label, you meet a lot more people because they're sometimes, especially at a place like Capitol, we had Coldplay and Radiohead and the Beastie Boys and Everclear and all these bands, Duran Duran. All these people were coming in on a semi-regular basis every year. So you'd meet them and see them. So we were just kind of used to that. So it wasn't anything that was particularly unusual.
Hmm.
And when you work in that environment, I guess you just get used to it. It's not that I'm not in awe of all these people's, what they've done in their lives. It's just when you're in that environment and you're not at a show, everything is just more humanized. Everyone's kind of just sitting around hanging out and talking, and it's just a more relaxed atmosphere to me. So that makes it pretty fun to be around that.
Hmm. Have you ever
Yeah.
been around an artist where they have a lot of fans around them and it's kind of, hyped up and there's a lot of energy? Yeah. What is that like?
Yeah. Basically, because it has nothing to do with me and I'm just around it and watching it and being there because either I made someone's record or was invited to come to some party or something where people were fans or something were there. You just stay out of the way. Generally, these bands, if they get to be a certain level, they have security and they have people that take care of that. So it's fun to watch. And sometimes, depending on who it is, it can get scary.
Oh, I
But
bet.
good news about being behind the scenes, it's never directed at me. I just stay out of the way.
Yeah. Do you have any stories that you would want to share about what it's been like for you to produce and become a producer over these years?
I did this artist, Glenn Campbell, who's the one who had Alzheimer's, and a lot of stuff that had to do with him because there was a film being made about that process that I'm in. It's called I'll Be Me, what I told you about that got nominated for the Academy Award for the song that I wrote. But there was a lot of stuff with him because when you have Alzheimer's, he would tell the same stories over and over and over again because he couldn't remember what he said 5 minutes before. But the stories he had were legendary because this is a guy that was one of the most amazing session guitar players on earth, and he played on everything from bands like long before you were born, but bands like the Monkees and Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin and all these incredible artists of the day back in the 60s and mainly the 60s for him. But he's on all these legendary songs that you've probably heard on the radio a million times, or your parents certainly have heard on the radio a million times. But he has stories about all those sessions that when you're with somebody like that I don't think anybody really hears before. And it was just fascinating to hear what it was like to record with Frank Sinatra. How Frank
Yeah.
Sinatra kept looking at him. He kept looking at Frank Sinatra because he wanted to watch Frank Sinatra sing while he was playing guitar. And Frank Sinatra was annoyed with him and it bothered him. And after the session, he went to the producer and said, make sure that guy doesn't come
Oh,
back.
wow.
Because he was just like anything. If you're in awe of
Mm-hmm.
someone, you know, like Jacob was talking about when
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't looking at Paul, but he was looking at me. But to hear stories about him playing on sessions with Elvis Presley and people like that, that to me seem like they don't even seem like they were walking this earth. They seem like such legendary figures because I can't imagine. I mean, obviously they make all these movies on Elvis now that are very popular and you see, but they just seem like more mythical figures to me. They don't seem like they were
Right.
ever walking around on earth anymore. And that's kind of the way it felt. But hearing about these stories and these songs that he played on and knowing all these people, that was one of the highlights for me. It's just because very rarely am I in the studio with people that have that kind of history. Again, I don't know if that answers your question, but that was one that truly stands out to me is because every day you would talk about all this stuff and regarding recording and being around those people. And it was incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, because I'm such a historian anyway, and I geek out on all that. I'm a music nerd as far as history goes, for sure. And I like hearing all that stuff. So it was fun to be around that. And same with Dolly Parton. When I produced her, she's another person that has so much energy and she's so nice. One of the funniest things I've ever seen anybody do when she got done with a session, she'd come back into the recording room and go, okay, who wants to take a picture with me? So everyone always wants to
Yeah.
do that, but no one will ask. But she's so used to it and she is so kind. She goes, okay, who wants to take a picture with me? I mean, that's one of the coolest things I've
I
ever
know. I
heard.
love
And she
that.
does it. She does it every time, and it's pretty legendary. And I just think that's what makes her very special amongst many others. So, because she's just that person.
Yeah.
What you see of her on TV or whenever you see her on interviews is exactly how she is in real life. There's no image, there's no persona. It's her.
That's wonderful.
It's just, yeah,
Oh.
it's interesting, and I don't how she's got that kind of energy and it has amazing ability to sing and do everything she does at 78. I think that's how old she is. It's incredible. So again, just working with people that have been around a lot and appreciate what they have,
Mm-hmm.
it just makes things really fun to be around and makes me like what I do. And then you got the other side of the coin, which are people who don't appreciate it and can have incredible egos and are not kind to people. You run into all kinds. So it's not so much in country music, but it was back, when I was doing more things that were more like rock projects and stuff like that. Some people had an attitude, to say the least, to put it mildly.
Yeah. You mentioned that you were a music geek in terms of history and learning all about
Mhm.
that. Do you remember when that first started or some of your first memories of becoming that music geek?
You know what? I think growing up around it, I was always buying music everywhere I went. I'd go to the record stores and I'd look at back then it was vinyl. You're looking at vinyl and looking at the covers of these records. I always wanted to find out what kind of guitars they played. Like now you can find out anything about anybody now, thanks to the
Yeah.
internet and everything. It's crazy what you can find out, the details. But back in the 80s, there was a few music magazines and I'd buy them and look and see what kind of amplifiers they were playing or drums or what their instruments were. But there just wasn't a lot of information like that. And all that kind of information was really exciting to me because I'm also a collector of guitars, vintage instruments, and basses. I like having the stuff that a lot of these legendary artists had. So I've always been buying that sort of thing and collecting that thing, and I use it for my sessions on a regular basis. But yeah, I just did that. I was always in search of what they played and how they got the sound they got, and it was just fun. But now it's pretty easy. Everything's listed, and you can read all about everything. The mystery of it isn't there anymore, but that's cool. I mean, it is what it is.
So when you hear music, are you able to sit and enjoy it, or do you sit and I mean, not saying that this would mean you're not enjoying it, but or do you hear all of the pieces that go into it?
As far as music that already exists that I didn't do or music that I'm working on?
Like if you're in the grocery store and you hear music playing,
Yeah.
just like that.
No, I tune everything out unless it's something that everything's kind of like, it's like a landscape to me. If I hear something on the radio or I go, wow, what's that? Then I'll all of a sudden zone in. But for the most part, it's kind of just like wallpaper. I'm kind of a snob in the sense of I like a lot of the old stuff and a lot of the new stuff has to be really good to get my attention. I think it just comes with the fact that, like I get in arguments with my son about who's better, the Beatles or Drake. Well, there's no doubt in my mind who's better, but my son doesn't buy into that. It's Drake. So It's just all who you like and what you do, and it's all in the ears of the beholder, and I've learned to accept that, but you'll never talk me into anybody being better than the Beatles for many different reasons.
Yeah.
For what they achieved between 1963 and 1970 has never been done. To go to something as embryonic as a song like I Want to Hold Your Hand and 3 years later do Sergeant Pepper,
Hmm.
that's such a musical leap that I don't think people can comprehend that, because back in the day, no one had ever heard music like that before. There wasn't 5,000 bands putting out stuff every 5 minutes.
Hmm.
They were kind of the trendsetters and the leaders, the way they looked, the way they played. It was in movies, everything they did, they were multimedia. Now I'm selling more Beatles streams right now, so I'll stop. Yeah. But yeah, the history of that and what they achieved in that amount of time and the legendary music that you never really had ever been heard before, even though I was a little too young for that time period. I didn't really come into it until like the 70s, but long after they were broken up. But it's still my favorite thing, but I still keep finding things that I like. All of a sudden, somebody will introduce me to something like, wow, that's really good. I never heard them before. And they've been around, but I just never heard it. Every day is a new thing, but largely I'm so engulfed in who I'm producing and who I'm working on at the moment that, it's a little more difficult for me to find things, or I don't go out in search of it anymore. It's just kind of something will cross my path, or somebody I like will tell me about something and it's a cool new thing.
Are you able to share what you're currently working on, or is that kind of a secret?
Yeah, no, it's not a secret. There's a new artist out of Texas, and his name is Braden Barnhill, and he's really amazing. He's new. He's 21 years old. He's gifted. He's a country artist, but yet it's a little bit different. I'm not going to compare him to these things, but I don't know how much country you listen to, but it definitely leans more in the lines of like, a Zach Bryan. It's just a little bit more folky, I would call it, which I think is really cool. So he's really incredible. There's another one that I love. His name is Graylin James. He's currently just now getting on the radio now, Graylin James. And his music is very modern. It's more on the hip-hop country flavor, but it's very, very cool, and he's an incredible writer. He's had a number of songs covered or cut by several mainstream artists, and now he's 25, and now he's signed, and now we're doing a record with him. He's going to do great things. So those two are current right now as far as what I'm currently working on, and I'm pretty excited for their futures.
Awesome. I'll definitely be sure to listen.
Cool, thanks.
How did you enter the music industry?
Well, I've been in bands when I was a kid. I started out, I was signed to Epic Records. I was signed to Atlantic Records, so I actually had a career as an artist, a touring artist. So that was my initiation into the business. I definitely found out a lot about what I liked and what I didn't like. I found out that I'd much rather be in a studio making a record than sitting in a van with a bunch of stinky guys. Not that they were, but you get my point. It was just not my idea of fun, and I didn't like traveling. I just wanted to stay put and make records. That was the earliest inkling that, I thought I wanted to be in bands. I thought that's what I wanted to do, but then when I got down to doing it, it just wasn't what I thought it was going to be. So the labels that I was with at the time, the ones I mentioned, when we were signed, we were a certain style of band, and as the trends continued, month by month, they'd want us to change and morph into these other type of bands and this other kind of music. And I didn't feel like we were ever signed because of what we were doing. We were signed, and they all of a sudden wanted to make you sound like what the current rage of the month was.
Oh, yeah.
So that was a bit disheartening for me. So I didn't like that. And I wasn't open-minded to making changes because I was the singer and the songwriter in these bands. And when they would come to me and want me to change things about the music, I was very young and very, stuck in my ways, and I'd tell them I'm not doing it. And that's why my career did not bode well in that world. I wasn't an easy person to deal with, but that's just something I got better at as I went along. For my own thing, I didn't want to be told what to do. And I know there's a lot of artists that feel that way, but that's kind of the way I was then. But I wanted to get into production where everything that you do, you're kind of told what to do, either by the band or the record. But that's something that it's not my music.
Right.
It's not my
So
band.
it's not personal.
So I can you're right. I can step out from that because what we're trying to do is get what's right for this band, either through the label's eyes or through the artist's eyes. And I'm very much a team player in that sense. If everybody's on the same page, even if I don't agree with it, I will get it to be exactly like what they're talking about. But again, for me, it was just I took everything really personally and it was my music and my thing, and I didn't want to be told what to do. It was probably not the right way to be, but it's the way I was. I think I was 17 or 18 then, so I really was not, you know, it was a different world then, and I'm really happy doing what I do now.
Yeah.
So it suits me better, and I want to win for the artist and for the label. And that's kind of my goal, and that's what I like to do.
Yeah, it sounds like you didn't wanna sacrifice who you were. You wanted to stay true to
No,
yourself.
I did, and maybe in certain ways, I mean, clearly I didn't succeed as an artist, but I wouldn't have wanted to succeed the way they wanted me to be.
Yeah.
So, and I don't think it would have been long term doing what they wanted me to do either, but who knows? That was a million years ago, and I'm fine with it. It's just growing pains, and it led me to be who I am now. I grew to be more wary of my surroundings and what people do. Some people know what they're talking about, some people don't. Some people are very musical and have no idea what they're talking about, and some people aren't musical at all and absolutely are spot on about their opinions and what they feel about music. So you're dealing with all kinds of different things and all kinds of different people. So, and it makes it never boring. So it's pretty interesting, and it can get frustrating, but what the bottom line is you figure out what to do and you get around it and you make it work, and it's all for the greater glory of making these artists be as great as they can be. And at the same time, because I've always been involved with a label, I've never been independent. I've always been a staff producer and senior VP for record companies. I've never been on my own. So I've always worked with labels, so I understand what they want. I go to the meetings, whether it's promotion meetings or marketing meetings or right down to videos, whatever the situation calls for. I'm part of it all. I don't get involved in what they do, but I'm aware of it and I see how things work. And it's an amazing education. It never gets dull.
It sounds like you have to navigate a lot of personalities and you're managing conflict or disagreements. Does that happen?
All the time. I've worked with people who hate each other and they'll only communicate through me what they want without talking to the rest of the band.
What is that like for you?
It's easy because they're only talking, one person will be talking to me. Then I'm forced to do what I think is right. I weigh everybody's decisions or thoughts, and I walk up to everybody as a unit and go, this is what we're going to do, and this is why we're going to do it. Will you go with me on this? And it usually always works out great because you try to give and take, but the give and take doesn't work. You got to go one direction because it's like if there's too much give and take, then nobody's happy with anything.
Mhm.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I'd rather somebody be upset about the direction, have the direction work, than have it be a bunch of middle of the road stuff that, oh, we really didn't do what you wanted, we really didn't do what you wanted, and it's all just kind of laying somewhere in the middle and nobody cares. I know it's kind of hard to explain and kind of hard to understand that kind of stuff, but you just got to, some people, especially a lot of the older artists, if it's a band, they have 40 years of problems behind them. And it's just like, you just have to, you deal with it. And sometimes I feel like a therapist.
Yep.
I don't understand psychology. I'm not that, but I have to learn to navigate around the problems. So I guess to some degree I am,
I,
you know.
I don't know if you know this, but I actually am a therapist. That's my
Oh,
day
great.
jobs. And what you're saying sounds exactly like you're managing a lot of almost like group therapy. You're managing a lot of
Sure.
personalities and what they're dealing with.
Yeah, it can get difficult sometimes. And then sometimes, when things are working, it brings people together too.
Oh,
So
yeah.
sometimes it's a real positive thing, but I can't undo sometimes 30, 40 years worth of damage. What I'm trying to do is get through the recording process of a record we're making and try to make sure everybody's as cool as they can be and
Yeah.
everyone wins little battles that make the overall war a happy one.
What do you
So,
think people would find most surprising about the music industry?
most surprising, I don't know how anybody could be surprised by anything because it constantly changes.
Mm.
There's so much change going on. I mean, if you ever told me streaming and all this, the socials, everything that goes on with TikTok, and if you told me that was going to be the big thing 15 years ago, I'd tell you were crazy. I wouldn't even understand it. I don't get it. But now we have literal departments, that like Kaylin, who
Mhm.
she deals with TikTok all day long. She teaches people how to do it. She makes them better at it. If they're really good about it and they know what they're doing, she enhances how good they do it even more. And she's one of those people that I understand what she does. I just never saw it coming. So I guess it's one of those things that it's an unusual way to have people know who you are and an unusual way to make people buy music. you know?
Totally. Yeah, it's wild seeing how social media
Yeah.
has kind of changed the world.
It's incredible, and anything that keeps music going, I'm all for, so I'm not some guy who's against anything. Like I said, we have full-on departments now that deal with all that, and that's something that we're in the music business that I never saw that coming, and dealing with that on a regular basis, and my job has just been to make the music, and then what happens with it after that is all up to, like, Kalen and all these other folks to get it out there to the masses and stream and sell music the best way we can, however it is. It's funny because it comes in full circles. We were talking about vinyl earlier, but vinyl has come full circle. We sell
Yeah.
a lot of vinyl now. I mean, like the Dolly Parton record that Big Machine just put out. The first week we sold almost 70,000 box sets at $65 a piece of
Wow.
vinyl, which is unheard of. It's insane, but people love vinyl,
I know.
you know? All ages love vinyl. I mean, I go to these record stores because I collect it and I have fun with that. And there's every age from 12 years old to 80-year-olds are in there buying vinyl. It's really kind of fun. They like to have it, hold it,
Mhm.
read the credits, and look at the artists, and it's kind of a fun thing. And some people are audiophiles, and they love the kind of equipment they have that you play records on, all the old power amps and turntables, and there's brand new stuff. It's pretty fun to see, and I love it, but it's funny because we're selling 8 tracks, cassettes, all kinds of stuff. They're almost like novelty pieces that people will buy. Most people don't even have an 8-track tape
I
player,
know.
but they sell them, you know? It's just cool to see. Everything comes around, you
I
know?
know.
So, and
Oh, man.
yeah, it's pretty cool. But yeah, but the industry it always changes. I'm never surprised by every week it's something new. The only thing that really hasn't changed for me is you still have to make the music. And a lot of people, especially more pop artists, are pretty good at doing it in their home. They can record things and play all the instruments and do everything really inexpensively, and they do it on their own. So that's something that's changed a lot too. Some people are good at it, some people are bad at it. It's just you just roll with the punches. So it's all never a dull
Yeah.
moment. I'm always interested to see what's going on next.
Yeah, you're making me think that I should have kept my old VCR. VHSs might come back.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Without a doubt, they are.
How would you say the music industry has changed your life?
Well, I've been doing this, like I said, primarily since I was 16 or 17. In certain ways, even though I'm never doing the same thing until I got into the label side of it, I've always kind of done what I do. But I don't know that it's anything about it that's changed my life other than the fact that I've enjoyed the work. I'm happy to have a job that I enjoy going to. And for the most part, I appreciate most of the people that I work with. There's always a couple people throughout the last 25 years that I don't look forward to seeing. Like any kind of
Yeah,
job or any kind of
true.
situation, there's good people and bad people. It's not a bad thing. It's just life.
Mhm.
You got to navigate your way around and make it work and do what you got to do to make things float and roll the way they need to go. I'm happy that I've lasted this long. I've had a job this long, been able to pay for college, which I still am. My daughter's a senior this year. So, I mean, it's like that stuff's really incredibly important because you want to give your kids the best things you can give them. And it's just a nice job to have. There's a lot of stress sometimes, but there's also a lot of accolades, a lot of things that make you feel real good. But I would assume it'd probably be like that with most anything that anybody does, but maybe some people just don't like their jobs and they're kind of feel like they're stuck in it. And I've never been that. So in that sense, I guess I'm fortunate.
That's amazing that you really found something that you truly love and are passionate about and are able to make it your job.
Yeah, no, I've been very lucky for sure. But you have to work hard. And in order to keep these jobs, you have to do the job right. And you have to be 24 hours on call. I don't have one day off. I work 7 days a week on something, even if it's just for 10 minutes or if it's 14 hours. You're always returning emails, texts. You're getting back to artists, dealing with the record executives. There's just a lot going on. So in that sense, if I didn't do my job well and I didn't work with my superiors the way they expect me to work, I wouldn't have a job. So, I mean, I guess I'm good at that. I want to work as long as I can, and I guess for the most part, I feel very pleased that I've lasted this long.
You clearly are very good at your job because I know the music industry is brutal.
It can be hard, yeah, for sure. But like I said, it has its rewards and there's great things. It's really pretty cool when you see some young artist blow up and has a hit record and is doing really, really well and achieves everything he's wanted to achieve in his life, financially for sure. But that brings another set of problems, especially when you're that young. How do you keep it going? How do you keep your head on straight? Hiring people that make sure they take care of your money and take care of you, because it takes a whole tribe. You got to have a great attorney. You have to have a great business manager. You have to have a great lawyer. There's such an army of people that go around artists, and any one of those people can drop the ball and it could be a disaster. Because I know people that have made millions of dollars and have nothing to show for it. That's a full-time job too, and I feel for them because you got a lot of people pushing and pulling trying to get at them.
Yeah, I bet.
And some people handle it really well. Some people don't handle it well at
Yeah.
all. Called human beings, I guess.
What does being a nerd mean to you?
I think being a nerd to me means somebody who's really focused on something pretty specific and is really wants to know everything there is to know about it.
Hmm.
That I don't know if that's exactly what a nerd is, but I mean,
Yeah, I think it is.
yeah, I'm nerdy about technology, especially with guitars and amps and how they're wired and what kind of sound they make and all that kind of. It's fun for me, and I like that. And so I guess you can be nerdy about many, many things. I mean, it's probably a lot cooler to be nerdy about, Gucci or something or some fashion. I mean, but the stuff that I'm nerdy about, most people don't care about, which is, I guess, maybe that makes it extra nerdy. Maybe.
I'm sure there's a lot of other people with a similar interest in that.
There
Oh,
are.
yeah, for sure.
For sure, yeah. Nerd's good. I like nerdy.
I think being a nerd is the coolest thing you could be.
What is your nerdy issues?
What am I nerdy about?
Yeah, yeah.
I would have to say that the first thing I was nerdy about, or like the first really passionate thing, was the whole Harry Potter world. Not just the books, but the theme park. There was a lot of online communities. So I'm really heavy in the book world.
I thought you were going to say Harry Styles for a minute there.
In terms of music, the
Yeah.
first band, Green Day. I love Green Day.
They're having a big comeback right now.
Yeah, they are.
It's a big tour. It's Green Day, Smashing Pumpkins, and Rancid.
Yeah, I love them. I've seen them a few times live.
Yeah.
They put on an amazing performance.
They're a good group. They've been around a long time. They deserve all the success they can
Yeah.
get. Cool.
Huh.
Well, you're in an army of nerds with that one.
Definitely, definitely. Is there
Yeah.
anything else that you would want to share with our listeners, or any sort of recommendation you would have for them to embrace their passions?
I'll speak specifically about music. If you're an artist or want to be an artist out there, if you're a songwriter, in the immortal words of my boss, Scott Burchetta, music leads. Good songs lead. It doesn't matter if you do it on an acoustic guitar or on a piano. You can produce music and get it to sound a certain way and make it bigger and better and all that. But it all starts with an amazing melody, an amazing lyric, and just a simple few chords to embrace that, what you're singing and talking about. It doesn't need to be produced in a big way to get the attention of a record company or even to get attention of the world. There's so many things going on with these TikTok things and everything that, people hear you and go, wow, I really like her or I like him. That's amazing. And I think it's the biggest fear. I know people who just won't do it. They have these songs and they just, I don't think I'm ready yet. I don't want to put that out there. I don't want to do that. But you know what? You got to get in there and you got to put stuff out and you got to see what's going on. There's so many things with Spotify. There's so many ways to put out music. I think now more than ever, anything is possible. I think anything is possible. It used to be really difficult to get stuff done and record music. And I'm talking 20, 25 years ago. It was hard. It was hard to get deals on labels. But now it's easy to get noticed.
Yeah.
You can make your own video or just film yourself on an iPhone singing a certain song and boom, all of a sudden you're a superstar or you get noticed by everybody. I think there's all kinds of new music that's really, really cool. I'm really excited about all these newer people that are more folk-based. I call them folk-based, but people like Phoebe Bridgers, kind of what Lana Del Rey started and kind of moved into these other areas. But there's so many cool artists that are doing music that seems to be coming from the heart.
Mm-hmm.
And really lyrically, it's pretty powerful. And it means a lot to them. And what doesn't really resonate with the outside listener, you kind of hear what they're talking about and maybe it works for you, or you can turn it into your own feelings. It's pretty cool. I just think that there's a lot of people out there doing spectacular things, and I just hope it continues because music clearly can change the world,
yeah.
I think. I mean, if you latch onto a song, it's something that you will live with for all your life. If it's something that's really a cool song and people play that song at their wedding or at somebody's funeral or something like that. That's really has been something important to them for their whole life. I just think it's something that it's just a
Oh,
gift.
yeah. I
So
love music. Music
yeah,
just, I feel like it defines being human.
I agree. I totally agree. So other than that, I mean, no matter what you're chasing, I think what I did was just keep chasing until I got it. I mean, I just kept at it. And also a lot of it, unfortunately, it's who you know.
Hmm.
Luck and opportunity plays a big part in where you're at and what you do. In order to get those and create those opportunities, you got to get out there and be doing something.
You got to take those risks, even if
Yeah.
with the fear of failure, just putting yourself out there.
Sitting there dreaming about it and not doing anything about it is not going to get you where you need to go. You got to get out there and try.
Yeah.
Got to ask questions. You got to try to meet people. You got to figure out how did this happen. Or again, there's so much internet action as far as how people got from point A to B. You can look up stories on Billie Eilish or whoever you want to look up. And how did you get your music heard? What did you do? It's all there to be read about and understood. It's simple now. It was hard before because you never had this kind of information. In that sense, the internet's an amazing thing. In the other sense, it can be really mean and it can obviously, as you've seen and heard about, can really mess up people's lives by what people say to each other.
Yeah.
It can be awful.
Yep.
But for an information source, it's amazing. There's nothing better.
Yep. You can find anything.
Yeah, pretty much. So I'm optimistic for today's youth, 100%. I think it's all good, but in the meantime, you can't get anything unless you get out there and try.
Absolutely. Take those risks. Almost every successful person has experienced some sort of failure.
Of course, I still do. I
Yep.
still do things that people don't like or care for. And it's a business that you can't have thin skin in. You got to have some armor and you have to deal with it because at the end of the day, music is in the ears of the beholder. What one likes, the other person won't. What one person thinks is great, just because they think it's great, other people like it because they don't even have their own identity. They just like it because so-and-so likes it. You just don't know where it's going to go.
Mm-hmm.
Either it kind of works or it doesn't. And I've heard some amazing people that have never had success, but it's some of the most amazing music I've ever heard. But it just doesn't connect, or the record company didn't work it, or spend $1 million trying to promote it. There's all kinds of reasons why things don't happen. But like anything in life, you just got to keep out there and keep pushing the boulder up the hill.
Yep. Is there anything else that would feel important for you to share with our listeners?
I don't feel like I'm really that guy. To share with listeners, I don't know. The thing that gives me a great deal of hope, I'm an adjunct professor at a school here called Lipscomb, so I teach music as far as the A&R process and on songwriting and production and all that kind of stuff. I've been doing that, I think, for 4 years. But when I see these young students come in and they specifically have things they want to do, they want to be managers, they want to be in publishing, they want to be in songwriting, they want to be a record company person, executive at A&R or someone in publicity or something like that. I just feel like, unless I had done this, which I'd never thought I would be, certainly never thought I'd be a professor, because I'm certainly not a professor. I'm just a guy who's been through a lot and can help educate people. But I'm just excited by the fact that people want to do this, and they seem to feel the same way I did 30 years ago. And I just feel like there's a great deal of hope and a great deal of just people that are focused and want to achieve their dreams. I don't think I've ever would have noticed that unless I did these classes and saw that. So I have a great deal of faith in the younger generation, as I call them, to carry this music business through bigger and better things. I also believe you have to have an adult in the room to help teach, and show them so they don't make mistakes. But I think for the most part, I think they can achieve anything or do anything. And I have a great deal of faith in where they're at emotionally and in their mind. I was impressed because I never, I'm not around, other than certain artists, I'm not around young people a lot. So other than my own kids and stuff like that. But I have faith in the upcoming generations to lead us to bigger and better things than where we're at now.
I love that.
So, yeah, I hope they do, and I believe they can. I see it. And I'm just talking about one little university. So I can imagine what's going out there in the world. I think anybody can do anything they want. And I think people are raised to feel that way. I hope they are. We taught our kids there's nothing you can't achieve. You just got to get out there and do it. You got to try.
That's definitely one of the messages I want to have from this show is to follow your passion and be who you are. Don't feel the need to sacrifice your identity.
No. As corny as that sounds, and as many times as you've probably heard that, it's still the bottom line. It's still textbook page one. If you don't do that, sitting in your bedroom dreaming about it is not going to get you
Yep.
there.
So, Julian, do you have any place where people could find you? I don't know if you use social media or if there's anything you want to plug.
Nope. I don't do that at all. You can't find me anywhere. So, and that's the way I like it. People that know me know how to get a hold of me. And obviously you know somebody who knows how to get a hold of me. Otherwise we wouldn't be doing
I know.
this.
I'm so grateful.
It's no big deal, but I'm happy to do this. And all she had to do was ask. And I don't do this regularly at all. I've never done a podcast in my life.
Oh,
So this is the
I
first
hope
time
you
I've ever
liked
done
it.
this. Yeah, it was fun. It's really fun. But I mean, I'm just saying, it's just, you're talking about people having to get out there and do something. If they want to find me, they'll find me. They'll know somebody who knows me. They'll go online, but I don't have any Instagram. I have nothing. Zero.
That must be nice,
So,
though.
I like it because there's so much going on for me every day that if I had all these people coming at me with
Oh,
all
yeah.
these, because you can imagine how many people just want to send me music because they want to get record deals.
Oh, I
You
bet.
know, and I got enormous amounts of that from all the years that I've known people that I know and trust, that I get stuff weekly, daily. I'm full. Last thing I want is thousands of people trying to reach me. And I'm not saying that because I don't want them to succeed. I'm saying it because I know I can't handle it.
Oh, yeah. No, you know your limit and your boundaries.
know?
There's only so much
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. But like I said, if you know Kaylin, you know how to find me. So there you go. It's easy enough.
Oh,
So.
I'm wondering if she might not want her name mentioned. I might have to edit that part out, but
That's
or
fine.
I'll bleep it
No.
out.
Yeah. Just reach Kaylin at Big Machine Records. You'll find everything. There you go. Shameless plug for Kaylin. So, no, but I think she's the type of person, she's a networker.
Hmm.
She's great. She'll get things done. And I've seen her in action. And she's really good at her job.
And-
So it's fun. It's fun to watch her.
She's amazing.
Yeah, she's good. But yeah, sorry I can't help you about getting a hold of me. So,
That's totally fine. That's so funny.
if you want to put out my email, you can, but I hope you
No,
don't.
I won't.
Okay.
Definitely. No worries. I won't share any of that.
Thanks.
Well, thank you so much for being here. I think this was a really fascinating show, and I think listeners are gonna like that behind the scenes of the music industry kind of viewpoint and hearing about your journey. So thank you.
Cool. You're welcome. It's nice to see you, and hopefully I'll see you again.
Yeah, I hope so too. All right, everybody, it would mean so much to me if you are able to rate and review the show on whatever podcast platform you listen to the show on. And remember, you can email me your thoughts about the show at thatnerdthingpod@gmail.com. And be sure to follow the show on Instagram and TikTok with the handle thatnerdthingpod. And I will see you next time.